Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever this podcast may find you. It is I, as always, Gavin.
And I, Justin.
And you might hear a little bit of a delay there, and that is because we're doing this one remotely. I'm at home. Justin's at his home. He's actually at the podcast studio right now. And that is because I kind of needed a weekend where I just didn't do anything at all. That didn't quite pan out, actually. I did do some editing on one of the videos, and I actually started writing an article. But, however, I needed a weekend where I didn't go anywhere. And so, yeah, we're doing this one remote. We actually got to do some fun things where we dove into our analytics and celebrated our 5-year anniversary.
Yep, and 500,000 on the Audi video.
Hey, look at that, all fives.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that mean I need to buy you a Seiko 5 watch?
If you're paying, yeah.
We'll see about that. But thank you all for tuning in, and let's just dive into this next episode of the Exhibition of Speed podcast. Well, I mean, at least the Great Salt Lake is getting some water.
Yeah, and we'll see as well.
It gained another 2 feet, I think, is what I last saw.
Gained another 2 feet, and its water is, we'll say, directly indirect. It does come from the mountains and shit like that, but obviously goes a lot of places before it gets to the Salt Lake, so we'll see how much actually gets there.
Yeah, we'll see.
In the end.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I agree with your gratefuls, and also double down on the, okay, when does winter end?
Yeah, I'm kind of over it. I'm definitely, like, emotionally over the winter, especially, like, I'm getting tired of my Blizzaks. I want some nicer ride quality out of my daily driver. I want to be able to put on my Extreme Contact Sports. I want to put on better tires. I don't want to have to buy another pair of tires for of Blizzaks before the season's done. I'm getting tired of it. I had a couple of instances. I'm trying to think of when they were. Recent-ish, where I drove my car in a spirited way, and I was like, oh, this is what my car is like. I forgot all about this.
Yep.
Trying to think if I went through immigration or not. I drove somewhere. Oh, well, no, I was leaving the R32 shoot.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, fuck, yeah, this is a great car.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting because we drove R32 after we recorded our last show, right?
Yes.
So we have that, which means we haven't talked about the redemption of the Mk5 R32.
We have not.
Which is a great segue. This is a longer segue than imagined, but fuck it, let's just fucking send it. So,
yep.
I do believe in pairing up, and we really do our best when we do these films to pair up a car with a road and an environment that's conducive for the car. And I think because of the situation that we found ourselves in a year ago, and because you and I kind of have a meme of driving a red car on Antelope Island in the second week of March. That's kind of the meme. I think we're going to kill off the meme. I'm kind of over Antelope. As far as a driving destination, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I think you are too.
Yes.
So, with that said, the Mk5 R32 as a whole, I appreciate it a lot more now than I did a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think in us driving, or for on-camera purposes, me driving it on the backside of East Canyon, where it was a picturesque day. It had just snowed. Was it the day before or 2 days before?
It was
recent snow.
Yeah, it was the morning of the day before.
Yeah, it was recent snow. So, everything was still kind of snow-capped, but, like, the roads were clear. It wasn't too cold, to give it a good little send. I did shit on DSG before, and I actually feel like the problem with the car is not as much with DSG, but with everything else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Sorry, and I'm also kind of fucking with some audio here because I'm way louder than you are in the headphones.
Gotcha.
But that's just a me thing. So, but it's not automatically adjusting that I've noticed, so that's good.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I can go like more deep into it if you want me to.
I think you should. I mean, I think it'd be good to just quickly tangentialize into that car and identify like what you mean by the rest of it.
Yeah, I think it drives more like a GTI. It's hard to see that car as anything special, and I think I felt this before, but I don't think I was able to properly vocalize it. I think that the Mk5 R32 has a really hard time with, except for the engine. And the engine is the reason why you buy an R32, whether it is Mark IV or Mark V. I think there are other things that come along with the Mark IV that are also an incentive over the Mark V. But with the Mk5 R32, the sonorous and linear and musical note of the VR6 in that car, that's the one reason why you buy it over GTI. Straight up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the end of it. It's still, it's a heavier car than I think it should be. It shoves in the same way that, funny enough, that the Mark 8 GTI also shoves.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. If you want to buy a GTI, you either buy, or if you want to buy a Volkswagen hatchback, frankly, just get yourself a Mark 7.5. There's no other reason to buy any of the other ones. There just isn't. Unless if you want to buy a car with all-wheel drive, then get a Mark 7.5 Golf R. Yep. Other than that, don't waste your time or your money.
Well, and that's where it's... I think the interesting thing you brought up with Mark IV versus 5, I think with 4, there was a bunch of new things. We had all-wheel drive for the first time in a Golf. We had... the VR6 had been in a Golf, but it was the bigger VR6. We had a bunch of little upgrades along the way. It was the first... we'll call it in massive air quotes, high-performance Golf. High performance being relative to the rest of the Golf range, not in general. Well, I mean,
you still had GTIs before.
Yeah, and this was the first thing to go above that, is my point. To go, one step above a GTI, in a way. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that was new with the Mark IV, and the package just worked really well. It happened to kind of coincide with all these technologies, the amazing engine that was bored out a bit to be a bit bigger, the all-wheel drive worked pretty well, and a fantastic manual. It just kind of worked with the Mark.
Seats.
And the seats, yeah, Koenig, the fantastic Koenig buckets.
I would say that the seats alone are a reason to get a Mark IV over a Mark V R32.
Yep, because the Mark V R32, besides the R logo in the seats, is just GTI seats.
Yeah.
Going to the Mark V, it tried to carry over, I mean, it didn't try, it carried over the engine, the exact engine effectively, the exact, probably one generation newer Haldex effectively, but more or less functionally identical.
It probably is the same. It just weighs more, and that's why it drives differently.
Yeah, and so the two new things you really had were the body around the car. The Mark V was vastly different than the Mark IV, when the Mark IV was fairly similar to the 3, all things considered, compared to like the difference between 4 and 5. And the only other thing was here in the States, where you could only get the DSG transmission. And so you ended up with two of these things, and we've talked before on how sometimes if something is a little too cutting edge, it can really timestamp itself, and the Mark V just was that across the board.
Yeah, straight up.
It straight up timestamped itself in the 07 to 08 time range, for better or for worse, and realistically speaking, it was... I think part of the reason it was better, quote unquote, this last time was because it wasn't being directly compared to its older brother that arguably was better.
Yeah, I've heard an experience like this translated with the Supra, where if you drive it in isolation, it's fine, and when you drive it in a vacuum and in isolation and away from other cars, it's perfectly fine. But when you do stack it up against a bunch of other either competition or other performance cars, it starts to fall on its face.
Yep.
So it's funny because I drove my car, being a Fiesta ST, from my place up to your place, which is 75% highway, and the other parts are just straight frontage road or surface streets.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hopped in my car, and I hopped in the R32. So as far as like how the day went, I went from fairly mundane driving in my car and then into some fairly mundane freeway driving in the R32. And then we got to the backside of East Canyon, and then I started to get into some dynamics, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is pretty fun. Like, maybe I wasn't so hard on it before. And then, you know, I gave my piece to camera. We did a review, or I did my review, and we did everything that goes along with a video shoot. And then I hopped back in my car to drive directly home from inside East Canyon. And I as soon as I got in, like the first 3 corners, I was like, oh, yeah, no, this is such a better car dynamically.
See, the weird thing about me is I can 100% agree with you that your car is better dynamically because I drove both spiritedly because we just swapped commutes effectively. However, in a weird way, I still prefer some portions of the Golf. I just prefer that slight more large solidity that it provides versus the twitchiness your car provides.
My car is also out of alignment,
which doesn't help.
Yeah.
And
out of alignment on winter tires.
Yeah.
Like, if my car can already just hop in and just drive that much better, you know, in its current state, then I think that speaks volumes.
It does. And I'm just also more used to that kind of more larger feel, especially because the R32 weighs about 600 pounds more than your car. Like, it's a not insignificant weight difference.
Yeah, my car as it sits, I think, is around 28 and a half, probably, if the base Fiesta is like 27.
Yep, and R32 is about 34 on a good day.
Yeah. So...
Yeah,
and you also had a downhill, which, you know, if you were on an uphill with, you know, the VR6 doesn't make that much power above 5,500 RPM, which is interesting for a naturally aspirated 6.
It is, with the way that engine is, I mean, combination, just the mechanical bits of it and the tuning, it is very linear torque from basically 0 off idle to 5,000. And then past that, it starts to really kind of just be dead. Kind of like, again, a newer turbo engine.
Yeah. So I'd rather just, because like the R32 also doesn't have the torque of a turbo motor. So like, if I'm going to not have power up top, just give me the torque down low.
Yeah. And it doesn't really have that either. But what it does have, which was one of the wild things to me, is the sound coming from that exhaust is amazing. And the exhaust is not stock in this car. Not at all.
No, it's a new speed that had the diffusers removed.
So what was wild is we filmed this up at East Canyon Reservoir, and I was standing on the dam side, and Gavin was out doing his bit for camera, and ended up on the opposite side of the lake, or the reservoir. And what was wild to me is he's about a mile and a half away, line of sight, and I could
across the lake, yeah.
Across the lake, and I could still hear him loud and clear.
Yeah, I kind of wish we had swapped roles, because I kind of feel like I missed out on that experience of hearing it from across the lake.
And granted, we happen to actually, we do need to acknowledge, we lucked out big time on that day. Not only with the snow-capped mountains and stuff like that, but it was dead silent with wind. There was practically nobody there.
Mm-hmm.
We encountered probably, until the later part of the day, 10 cars or so.
Yeah.
And it was just the quietest, most windless day you could ask for in a canyon next to a reservoir.
Well, it's interesting, because like when we shoot in the winter, historically, it's been an antelope.
Yep.
Or I guess in the springtime, at least, it's been an antelope. And then when we go into the canyons, it's in the summer when people are out there boating or riding motorcycles or riding, their road bikes. You know, there's a lot of attraction to these areas. East Canyon, especially with the reservoir right there, people coming out for, you know, like a Memorial Day. You know, people are bringing all the boats out. Motorcyclists are, you know, going on their either late spring, early summer, or midsummer, or fall rides. You know, fall in particular, you know, with the leaves and stuff, and people in, you know, the Mormon assault vehicles.
Yes.
Doing 15 under. going, "Oh, look at the pretty leaves."
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, not even in Cascade Springs, it wasn't even 15 under. It was 15.
Yeah, exactly. So 25 under, because most of the roads like 35 to 40, I think, depending on the section.
People were doing like 10 to 15 through there, which, oh my God, I was seeing so much red.
There's a difference between doing cautiously under, like I consider 5 miles an hour cautiously under the speed limit. There's circumstances, I totally understand that, and I'm not even talking about bad weather. Just like if you're uncomfortable, whatever. But once you half a speed limit, there's a problem.
Do better.
Yes, if you have to feel that uncomfortable or can't feel comfortable to drive closer to the speed limit than that, you probably shouldn't be driving.
Yeah, I don't want to gatekeep when it comes to the canyons. I mean, I would there's some double speak here, because on one side, put up a fucking toll on every canyon road. I would happily pay that toll to have a mostly empty canyon. I would love that. I wouldn't love it at the end of the season when I've already spent hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars.
That's when hopefully they give a season pass.
Oh God, I would happily buy a season pass for like Big Cottonwood.
Yeah,
for, like a Big Cottonwood and Guardsman's combo of like, I'll pay you $500 for the season if I know that we could cut that road going traffic by like 70%. I would happily pay, what some people would pay for a season ticket for, a mountain resort. I would happily pay that for an empty canyon road that I know will be empty, 100%. On the other hand, though, it would be very shitty to, say you don't belong here, go home. However, I guess there's some triple speak going, because I need to put this tactfully.
I think the real difficulty is we all pay for the roads. That's fine. We all technically have the right to enjoy the roads.
We do.
We both agree on that. But, and this is where I think the triple speak comes in, when your enjoyment of the road, and actually this can kind of translate to many other things that this podcast is not well qualified to deal with, when you enjoying the road in your manner starts to impede on others enjoying the road in their manner, there starts to become a conflict. Not like, and this isn't a small conflict of enjoyment, like when you're creating a traffic jam on a road that you shouldn't, there should be no reason for you to create a traffic jam on. Your right to enjoy that road has now trampled upon somebody else's right to enjoy that road.
Correct. That's how I view religion, frankly.
Yes, religion, politics, a lot of things you can slot into that, and that's usually the answer, is that if, yes, you have a right to do this, but your right to do that doesn't impede somebody else's right to also do something else.
Exactly.
And with canyon roads, the problem is the way we like to enjoy them is different than other people. That's fine.
Yep.
However, with some of the people that love to enjoy them, that go out for nature, they can sometimes feel that them doing what they perceive to be safe, such as driving 15 to 20 under, that they're in the right, which that's not necessarily true.
Correct. Or when, bicyclists,
yes.
When their idea of a good time is rolling down, a steep and treacherous canyon road while trying to talk to their buddy next, like side by side at like 25 miles an hour on a tire that is a pubic hair wide as far as traction contact patch is concerned. Yeah, that doesn't float well with me. I gotta be honest.
No, well, it doesn't float with anybody, because in most places that's illegal to ride double wide.
It is. There's actually signs, but guess what? People do it anyway. But at the same time, people will also say, like, well, the speed limit on this road is 45 miles an hour. Why are you doing 100? Well, because I want to. That's why. Because I want to and I can.
And it's one of those weird things where it gets into a lot of subjectives, where it's like, what I'm doing is subjectively safe to me, unless something like you doing something that you perceive to be subjectively safe to you, like riding side by side on a bike, all of a sudden when those two subjectives meet, it's not safe for either of us.
Correct.
both of us are going to have an issue. And I'm kind of for gatekeeping is a very strong word, but I'm sort of for gatekeeping driving on canyon roads in two ways. One is the toll road, just like what you described. I'd be more than happy to pay that as well, because
well, we do for Antelope Island.
Yeah, and I would say that it used to work better, but as people wanted to get out more, as we've talked about before, they stopped caring quite as much about the toll and just found out Antelope more and more. So there's a lot of people out there regardless. But the second way that I would like to just gatekeep driving in general a little bit more, which it's been a while since I've mentioned it, but I've also mentioned this before. I wish that our license structure was a lot more strict.
Sure.
Most of that's just from me coming from trucking. I had to go through courses to drive what I am legally allowed to drive, and therefore I think even as a regular license holder, there should be a lot more training and courses involved. In fact, here in the States, it's, subjectively, the easiest to get a license than any other first world country.
Yeah.
Because we're just so lax on everything.
And also, we don't have to pass safety inspections anymore.
I know, that's great, isn't it? Granted, I joke about the fact that that's great, and also, but also want them to come back. But I'm also the person that's been driving with a cracked windshield for 3 years that wouldn't pass safety.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing. I can say this, though, in my defense. That is the only thing on my truck that is in any way, shape, or form out of spec from passing a safety inspection.
Yeah.
Everything else is up to snuff, because guess what? I used to work as a mechanic. Most people didn't. Most people have no clue their brakes are fucking toast until it ceases to stop.
Right.
Which is why we need safety inspections. Anyways. Oh, people. People.
People.
Anyways, but with the Mark V, going back to that for a brief moment, no, I think overall, once that video comes out, I think it'll be a slight redemption for the car, which a lot of people, understandably, thought that we shit on a bit. So,
well, no, people think I shat on it because I did.
Yes.
Yeah, I was in a not as great mental or emotional space as I am now with things that are external to our program.
Mm-hmm.
I also. Yeah, I was just extraordinarily frustrated with the traffic that was going on at Antelope, and the places that I wanted to be able to drive the car hard, being the squiggly bits, are also terribly paved. Even though they've received new pavement, it's still a very bouncy road. So it's not something that you can actually push a car and start to hone in on, dynamics.
Yep.
And the places that aren't that are really, I don't want to just keep on using the word really, but they're just wide and open, and you can carry a fuckload of speed, but you're carrying a fuckload of speed right by a bunch of bison and also people that are doing literally 15 to 25 miles an hour trying to, or sometimes even stopped in the road entirely to look at the bison.
Yep.
And we're trying to do something else entirely. So that's the reason why I don't think we'll ever shoot at Antelope again. I want to go back there and ride e-bikes and hike and look at the wildlife and go there for the reasons that everyone else goes there. But I don't want to film cars out there. So,
oh yeah.
I was going to say, we haven't done anything out there since R32s, have we? Except for the review of my car and your car in December.
Yeah, so we did our two personal cars to start off the shorter videos, the one drives.
The weekly content, tune in on April 5th for Justin's Saab 900 Turbo SPG.
A week and a half away.
Dude, that's wild, because we started planning this out a few months ago, and it felt like forever away, and now it's around the corner.
I know. Yeah, I don't think, after R32s, I don't think we did any video stuff there besides the short drives. Because we did a couple photo things. We did the merch photo shoot. We did, little things like that. But as far as video, I don't think we did anything else.
Yeah, and that was pretty chillaxed.
And that's fine. I think it's still great to use for some of those things, but just no video. No driving video.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. It sucks because it used to be this perfect little haven, especially 10 years ago, when I was a senior in high school. it was empty. It was always empty, except for maybe 5 people on the island. And the campsites were empty. We did once go rent a campsite and basically use the place as a private racetrack through the night. No one gave a shit. There was never a ranger on the island 10 years ago. Starting
That's
like
probably changed. That's probably changed for nighttime.
It probably has. Yeah, you used to just basically be left alone. And in fact, even the guard shack didn't used to be fancy. It had a gate, but it didn't used to have like the fancy electric gates or anything like that. All of that's new within basically the past 5 to 6 years, which is the entire time we've been shooting. And I think we've probably had a 75% quote-unquote fail to 25% success rate with filming there, if not more than that.
Yeah. I mean, every time we've gone out there, with the exception of, I would say, the Stinger, so the very first video we ever made, and I would say the Stinger is actually the only exception to prove the rule, where every time we go out there, we're stressed out by either not just stressed, but we are hindered by other people. Because I mean, I could just rattle off all the cars that we've done out there. Let me just start from the top here. We've done Stinger, we've done Mazda 6 Turbo, we've done Suzuki Swift Sport, we've done the Porsches, being the 996 Aero Kit, 996 Turbo, and 992 C2S manual.
Mm-hmm.
We've done Lotus Elise, so this isn't quite in order, but we've done Lotus Elise.
We did the Fiats.
We did the 2 Fiats.
And that one was actually okay. Not
that was
great,
better,
but okay.
We attempted a TTRS.
Yep.
Which didn't go great.
No.
I mean, it went okay. Like, it was half and half, really. What else have we filmed out there?
Then I guess, theoretically, probably you should include the Fiesta
cars.
and Saab. Yep. And that one, I think that one was probably on par with Stinger, where there just wasn't any issues.
It was cold.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and actually, we've tried to film my car another time out there, too.
That, too. Yep. Yeah, so let's say, for just in case...
10 cars. That's 10 instances.
10 instances, there are 2 at best that were good. So actually, my 80% was pretty fucking close. 80 to 90% fail rate.
2 or 3, because, well, it depends how you break it down, right?
Yeah.
We did the Fiesta, and we did the R32s, which is another instance.
Yes.
So if we're breaking it down on a by-car basis, even though there are days where we took multiple cars, yeah, actually, no, I think you are, like, right on the money. Sorry, I don't know why I doubt you in these things. I did want to kind of break it down, though, and just, like, walk through it myself. Partially just to think about the cars that we've driven in the last 5 years now, by the way.
Yeah, holy shit.
It's been 5. We've been doing this for 5 years.
5 years total. I would say 3 more seriously, because as we both agree and we both know, the launch of the Audi video was more or less the catalyst for us being more serious.
Which is now at 500,000 views, which is 500,000 views, my guy.
Yes, so that's wild.
Popping champagne bottles.
Right, exactly. So I actually noticed that we had been having a little bit of an uptick, and we knew that it was going to hit 500K sometime in the next little while.
At some point it was going to hit. I didn't know what a timeline would be, but...
Yeah, I just knew, looking at, like, it was like 480 last month. I was like, or 480, 490 last month. I was like, it'll probably be in the next couple months sometime. God knows when. And then it was doing a complete flat line through the beginning of March, and then about a week and a half ago, it just started to trend upward again, somehow. We don't know how. And it just magically, quickly pushed itself over 500K.
Yeah, and hopefully it keeps going. It's interesting, though, because in our presentation style, I feel like we have aged, for the better. I don't mean, like, become old men, but, like, I feel like we've matured more since then, especially on my behalf. I think I'd like to feel like, in terms of, like, production and presentation, and a lot of our eye candy too, like, has matured since then. But everyone keeps coming to our channel for that.
Yeah.
Like, before we didn't have a drone on that at all.
The only drone shot we used was we got Adichie involved.
Yeah.
And that
it
was
just Adichie for, was there, how many, do we use 1 or 2 clips?
just one clip.
Was it 1 clip only?
So we did 3 runs of it, which is different variations. We just used 1 clip, which is all 5 of the cars driving down South Mountain.
Yeah.
That's it.
Wow, that's nuts.
So, like, we didn't have drone. We didn't even have it. Honestly, at that point, we didn't even have a dedicated setup. Like, we switched camera cars multiple times.
Yeah, because we used my old Forester. We
Yep,
used
so
the
we
Sequoia, and we used your
The
Tundra.
the Tacoma, yeah.
I mean, Tacoma, sorry.
Yeah, so we used all 3 of those as camera vehicles for various times. We did have, like, the 2 cameras were stable, like your 70 and my 70D. But
Formerly my 70D.
yes, we had a bunch of different GoPros all over the place.
We had a borrowed 5D Mark III.
Yep. We were renting audio equipment the whole time, which was the first time we did that, because I was like, if we're going to be doing this, I want better audio, which I think was a good call, because that compared to, I would say so, compared to what we were doing before, yeah. Like,
I just don't remember whose call that was.
I'm pretty sure it basically went, I was like, dude, do they rent, like, mic packs? And we looked it up, and I was like, let's do it.
Oh, because I had already, like, been renting audio stuff from them from Acme. Plug for Acme Camera Company down on 9th South and West Temple here in Salt Lake City. Love that place. They're the best. But, I mean, it was my call to make this project, like, I kept on saying to you, like, I want this to be the one to put us on the map.
And it's funny how it's not always that happens, that, like, you end up slightly aiming for that, and that's actually what happens. Usually it's you just create something and then it magically...
That's generally how it goes. This one was, I mean, it was more intentional than I was intended when I said it.
Yes.
I didn't think we'd get this to 500,000. I actually was going through some Instagram memories, and I think I posted on my stories that, like, holy shit, we hit 12K.
Well, here's what's wild. I just pulled it up on the YouTube studio. So, like I was saying, it was averaging like 390 to 500 views per day all the way up until March 15th.
Yeah. And also, I'm going to join you here, by the way, just to look at the numbers.
Yep. So the 14th was 550 viewers. Then it jumped to 960. And then ever since March 16th, it's not only been climbing, but above 1,000 every day to a peak of Thursday, the March 23rd, was at almost 3,300 people on that single day. So, like,
we're at 506 right now.
Yeah, so 31,000 views this month, which is 200% more than last month. So it's just had its, like, 4th wind at this point.
Yeah.
It just keeps
the last month here. Yeah, we really were, like, not doing much until like March 14th is when, like, the start of, like, that growth happened.
Yeah, like, it was all the way down to, in January, like 140 views a day. It was way down.
Oh, wow. Because, like, in March, like, looking at early March, we were around, like, 600 a day, between 400 and 600 a day. And then March 12th, which that's not the anniversary of, that's, like, a few days after. Because wasn't it March 8th when it, like, started to spike?
It was, like, March
2021.
Mm-hmm. And I actually just looked back. For the entirety of 22, our biggest day was April 23rd at 1,800 views. So, like, the past week, we've been breaking that every day.
Interesting, yeah, because, March 10th, 650, March 12th, 787, but then it dips down to the middle fives the next day. But then, like, March 14th, 554, and then March 15th, 963, then 1013, 1264, 2304. Like, it started to spike, and then it's been ping-ponging between, like, 1,600, 2,700, 2,000, 3,200. So, like, it was ping-ponging upward. So,
you know what? I just noticed something, and I wonder, here's a trend that would be interesting to research. So I pulled up the lifetime views for this video, and it's just a bunch of waves. This is its more or less 4th official wave. So the weird thing is, I've noticed when it first was launched and it first started going up, March 8th was the first date, or like March 18th was the first date it started trending upwards, but it didn't really do much until like April 1st. What I've noticed, for some reason, both 2021, 2022, and now 2023, All three of them, the last week of March and the first week of April, it jumps up.
Yep.
That's weird.
I wonder why that is.
That's really weird. I guess Audi, April, AA, I don't know. Like, I can't think of any reason why.
I'm just trying to think, like, are people watching, well, there are 5 different reasons why you would watch this video.
Mhm.
And it's a D2 S8, it's a C5 S6, it's a B7 RS4, it's a first-gen manual R8, and it's a B8.5 RS5.
Yes.
Those are 5 reasons why someone would look at that thumbnail of the cars parked there at LCO1 in at Utah Motorsports Campus, which is now where Works 45 is at. If those of you that know Works 45 and may have even been there, or at least follow the Instagram account, that's in the same building that we shot that video. So, looking at that, if you look at the comments, and granted, not a lot of people that watch a video will comment on it. So the comments on this video, at least that come to my mind, are either great work on the production, thank you for talking about the RS5 like this, B7 RS4 is great, it's my dream car, or I've owned one, or whatever. Not a lot of love in the comments for the Ronin S8 or the wagon, or the R8 for that matter.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other videos on R8s that we didn't, blaze any trails there. I wonder how much of it has to do with car buying and people car shopping.
Could be. Yeah, very well could be. Actually, tax time, tax return.
You think so?
It might be a factor. It might not. It's definitely not the only factor, but it very well could be one.
What I think is great, too, I'm looking at the analytics on the right, and it's looking at top traffic sources. 90.7% of the views have come from it being suggested. So that is very clearly the algorithm pushing it through, and not as much to do with maybe tags or anything that we've done on our behalf. Because there's like other YouTube features at 4.3%, direct or unknown 2.4%, which 2.4% of 506,000 is not nothing.
So this is only the thing you're looking at. That's real time. That's only the last 48 hours. That's not
True
for the whole time.
Yeah.
Initially, let me see if I can find the initial, because the initial was a little more driven by external, because it was, we shared it in a bunch of Facebook groups and then shared it again a little later, and we're pretty sure that's the catalyst for it just starting to perpetuate.
Well, yeah, and I got drunk one time and commented as Exhibition of Speed on a Haggerty video featuring a Coupe Quattro that had a 4.2 V8 shoehorned into it.
Oh my God.
Did you get my tag earlier, by the way?
I did. That's sweet. He sent me an Audi 90 that was shoehorned with a 4.2 and a manual in there. Beautiful. Like,
it was well done. It looked
well
nice.
done, and a cool platform. Like, because those cars are actually more lightweight than you would think being an Audi, just because they're so small. So
small
that's a
for
pretty
Audi standards.
Small for Audi standards. Yeah,
Speak
that's a
for
pretty.
yourself.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool little combination. Here you go. So, all time, as to how viewers found this video. 67% was suggested, 23% was browse, and then director unknown.
Which is not bad, I don't think, for the browse.
Yeah, still mostly algorithm on either one of those, because browse they'll cater your search results based on algorithm again, based on what somebody's searching. So clearly, like, obviously, this is the one time we have majorly hopped on the algorithm train.
And, I mean, hopefully it won't be the last. I mean, there have been a couple of ideas that I've had for this year, one of which has already been done. It's in the post-production works right now. It hasn't come out yet, and that made me a little sad when I heard about it. I was like, oh, man, God damn it. I thought we were going to blaze that trail. But, it's crazy to look at the numbers here. And for our videos, I'm not actually, like, when it comes to the production of it, I'm not as numbers driven. When it comes to the marketing of the video and like how we're going to push it, and there isn't much of a marketing strategy that we have.
No.
But when it comes to the production of the car, or of the of the video, I'm not as numbers driven. But it is when we have a case like this that we can really get into other like metrics. Like, I'm looking at like the videos that are suggesting this video. is, I believe, Throttle House.
Funny. I wonder how many of them are like RS5 comparison video.
Because it's the one, yeah, it's the one with the B8.5 RS4, or sorry, RS5, with the B9 RS5.
I'm at the same time very happy and kind of not surprised.
I'm not as surprised that you could hear that. That was an ad, but they got 1.9 on theirs 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we're a quarter of that, with another year under its belt. But still, thanks, Thomas and James,
Right.
and crew. Our average view duration is at 25 minutes now,
Which is crazy. Like,
which
so
is
here's
up.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's up from I mean, for a lot of videos to get 25 minutes as an average view duration is kind of nuts.
Yeah.
When the video is an hour and 45 minutes long, that's actually still a really high percentage.
Yeah, so the wild thing about this is, I agree with you not being numbers driven, because neither am I. I mainly look at them just to get some like relativity and see some things, because really the Audi video is the only video we have with enough numbers to give us good averages.
Yeah.
And so it's been really cool to dive into that, and I've done some very quick napkin math to check like our RPM on that video or the average view duration. And even from a percentage standpoint, our average view duration is fantastic, because 25 minutes is about 20% of the video. And that's way higher than the average, which is 3 to 7% of the video, because normally it's 30 seconds.
And it's crazy to me to see what, other folks that are actually YouTubers, the people that do this for an actual living, the numbers that they can churn out and what they can live on. And granted, they are going towards a different audience. They are making completely different types of content. But, the ability to buy supercars off of this, when our video got 500,000 views in 3 years and has now made us $1,900. Over 500,000 views, 500,000 views, $1,900.
Yep, and that's because our RPM is just base average. Really, like, the problem with trying to calculate, for instance, ad revenue is it's almost incalculable, because it has so many factors that go into it beyond views, that it becomes impossible to predict unless you make the same content weekly. And when I'm saying the same content, I'm not just talking automotive. I mean like very, very standardized.
Same
shit.
Intro, same outro, same kind of attitude and approach to presentation in the video. Yeah,
that's exactly. That is the only way you can actually get a even rough idea as to what you'll make per video, per view, and whatnot.
Yeah, so when people say, "Oh, I want to be a YouTuber. I want to make millions of dollars and, do nothing." It's like, well, it doesn't work that way.
And I actually heard a great take the other week while I was just randomly browsing videos, where this individual was asked on an FAQ, do you think it's impossible for somebody to break out into your space in YouTube? And they were like, I did for a while, until last year when a newcomer went from brand new to 5 million subscribers in 6 months.
Wow.
He's like, I thought that it wasn't possible, because pretty much all of us that have been here for 5+ years are the same people, and most other people have either found a very small niche that they ride or kind of started and burned out. And then this other dude popped in and just blazed a new trail like crazy. So he's like, I've changed my opinion since then. I think it is easier than ever to have a large blow up with a single video. I think it's also harder than ever to get consistency.
Yeah.
Because you can easily find a random algorithm train that will get you a viral video. That's probably easier than ever. However, to actually create consistency has just become harder and harder and harder every year.
Yep.
Because the combination of advertisers being more stingy, YouTube being more stingy, and there being just the platform being more and more flooded, it's hard to shout above the noise more than once.
Absolutely.
And even we struggle with that. I mean, we have a few videos that have done okay. And when I say okay, not really that okay, but okay
I mean,
considering some
it
others.
depends, right? We have 3,000-ish subscribers. I closed my window, so I have to go back. But
Yeah.
let me just go back to the studio. Back to the studio. Yeah, we're at 3,300 subscribers, and we have I don't know. Our highest viewed is 500,000, but then from there it goes. What's the Stinger 0 to 168 video at?
I'm actually sorting by views right now. There we go. 81,000 actually. So that's higher than I thought.
The last time I saw was like I think in the 60s or 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, let me look at. Oh, I sorted by date, and then it just brought up our first video. Apparently, we had 5 likes and 2 dislikes on our Welcome to Exhibition of Speed.
Gotta
Who
love
disliked that? Like,
gotta love small numbers.
I know. Well, small numbers, but also like who disliked something so wholesome? I don't know.
I know.
Yeah, on your 10,000 mile update, we're still 500. The BMW M2 videos are collectively less than 300 views. 163 on mine and 97 on yours. And then 81K on the 0 to 168. And then that one time you shat on a B9 A4S line was at 1,200. Ooh, 25% like ratio.
I know, right? I love
it. That's kind of great. Maybe that's a redemption car that we got to drive.
I would do it. I think I would probably still, similar to your Mark V, I would probably still maintain most of my opinions because a lot of the things I said in there, I think are valid. I think I just didn't, that was still really early on in presenting, so I just didn't voice them as well as I could have.
Totally. I mean, if we're looking at the other stuff, like the Suzuki Swift Sport is at 1,400. I'm glad that the Fiesta and 500 Abarth video is at 11K. That makes me fairly happy.
Yeah,
oh, go ahead.
I actually sorted by views to give a rough idea. We only have 6 videos above 10,000, and we only have
the 124 review of the old and the new is at 9,600 though, so it's almost there.
It's almost there, and we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 13 videos above 1,000. So like we're getting there, especially even compared to last year. We have been,
and
getting
that's out
there.
of 30 videos.
Yeah, which actually I do have to scratch our backs a little bit, despite our growth being slow. I have, just as I've looked up random things, stumbled upon random creators that have been working far longer than us, doing far more things than us as far as like posting weekly or whatnot, and had far less traction. And some of them may be okay with that. It'll be side projects that they really don't care if they go anywhere. They're just posting it for brevity's sake, almost, just for the hell of it. This is a passion project, but we have had like some desire of like, we want it to go at least far enough to where it can pay for itself and we get some recognition.
Yeah, and there has been examples and periods of time where that's happened. Like the year that we monetized, it was like we were making enough where you and I started to think of like, what if we bought a camera car?
Yes.
If we make like, if we keep making like $300 a month, like shit.
And then that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But which is all fine and dandy. We rode the wave for a bit. It paid for a few things, and it paid for a couple shoots after that, and all fun and dandy. It is kind of wild to look back, and actually, come to think of it, it's interesting we're having this little look back right now because we basically are exactly just past our 5-year anniversary.
Yeah, and I do realize that we didn't record a podcast on that same day, but that's fine. That's whatever.
Yeah.
This can be our version of that. No, I mean, no one else knows the day that we started. My only metric of the day that we started was the day before I got fired from Integrated. And it was the day that I had some video gear from work out there with you on Antelope Island. It was before... Wait, hold on. There was another day where it was just me and you out there.
There was.
Because when we went out with Brooke and AJ...
Let's see.
Maybe that was the day. Was that... Wait, hold on. Had I been fired yet? Because I remember the van.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember picking the van up at the end of a work day at IE.
Let's see. So, I actually just realized I don't have that old footage from the very first Stinger shoot here on the server. I was going back, just looking at dates. Our channel opening.
Let me look, because I probably have it.
Yeah, our channel opening film, the one that got shot on for the like ratio, the 3-2, that was done on the 15th of 2018.
Yeah, let me look here and see. Exhibition of speed. Interesting. So I have the channel opening footage, so that same video.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one is Antelope Island with the TTRS.
Yeah, so I do wonder if in the grand...
There's also some... Yeah, okay, so there is some organization that was clearly done by multiple people.
Yeah.
The first folder that I show is the 12th of March. And that was when... I need to change my view here. If the window wants to respond, which it actually doesn't, so...
Of course not.
Shout out to the desktop. Yeah, that was the first day where it was just me and you, and I was like, "Hey, do you want a promotion?"
Well, and what's
"Wait,
funny, what's funny is I vividly remember one part of that. Not as much the driving or the promotion part, but I remember us coming back to my house and just sitting on the couch for like an hour or so, just like brainstorming, like, if we were to do this, what do we want to do? And then that's when I was just thinking,
what do we want to call it? Like, are there any other like YouTube pages or Instagram pages that have this name?
And I just remember thinking to myself, huh. So I remember like verbally saying, huh, and then typing, and then being like, oh, shit. And you're like, what? It's like, I have an idea. Exhibition of speed.
And we were like, well, that sounds like something that Clarkson would say. And I got an Exhibition of Speed ticket years ago. So it kind of fits.
Yes, and so when I thought of that, I knew it was actually because of your ticket, I think, that I thought of it.
Oh, was it really?
Yes, and so I was like, wait a minute, and I was shocked, actually, that the name was available.
I'm honestly still surprised, too, because, like, the amount of, like, reckless shit that people do. Like, you'd think, like, either a lawyer's office or, you know, people that, you know, like to flex, maybe, would have come out with a title like that, like, you know, people flexing supercars or something. Or
even like a channel similar to like 1320 or old drag videos or something like that. Like plenty of those.
Or street racing videos, yeah.
Yeah, like Super Speeders Rob, actually. Something like that. I'm surprised that somebody like him didn't take that back in like 2007.
Well, it's because in 2007 he was Super Speeders Rob.
I know. He was legitimately doing Exhibition of Speed.
He was. He and Matt Farah and other guys together were doing that, yeah.
Doing the crazy shit.
Yeah, so seeing who would get pulled over first.
Yeah, no, I vividly remember that particular portion of just sitting there, remembering the name and just being like, okay, I'm just going to like create this shit, create a Gmail, create a YouTube, create all this stuff. And then we got it, just in case.
Yep.
Just keep it as placeholders, regardless of what happens, because...
also, we made our Fiat 500 Abarth high beams video private.
That must have been you, my guy.
Oh, interesting.
We had a video, for those that don't know, where the Fiat 500 Abarth that we had makes a very funny and pronounced clunk when you switch from low beams to high beams, and we made a video just making fun of that.
Yeah, and because it's funny because have everything sorted by views, and it's right next to my Mark 8 GTI Revelations.
Yep.
Which actually has more views than the 500 Abarth video, but that might be also because it got privatized. Yeah, and I wanted to do, and I still do, and I actually been meaning to talk to you about, like, not restructuring, but, like, cleaning up the feed a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we can have this conversation off mic if you want to. But
no, that's fair.
Yeah. The video with you and your Stinger is at 413 views.
Wow.
Episode 1, Justin drives his Stinger.
Oh, man. That's funny.
Actually, that would have been funnier if I put for episode 2, Justin drives his Saab.
Yeah,
That'd be a joke that only you and I would get. No one else, like everyone else, would be like, "What do you mean episode 2? The fuck?"
yeah, exactly. Because I think we only ever did. We didn't even call it episode 2. We just did an update that I hit 10,000 miles, and that was it. I think those are the only 2 things we did.
In year 0 to 168.
Because I did right after that. Sort of film something quickly updating, but I was piling on miles so quick on that car that it was pointless to try to do a video every 2 months every time I hit another like 5,000 miles or 10,000 miles.
Yeah. Well, and also on a car that like nothing was really happening. It's like, what's the point, really?
Yeah, that car was boring
okay,
in the best way because nothing had problems.
Yeah. Bad for revenue, but you know.
Yeah, there was no problems to report. It's like, cool, I hit 30K. And 30K, well, actually, the 30K update was the 0 to 168 video.
It was.
Because what sucks about that video is I had it all perfectly timed to where I would hit 30K while doing the run.
Yeah.
And then I got cock-blocked from that because I had to do 2 runs. Because on the first run, I got botched by somebody. Oh, I was quite pissed about that. I had like planned and set everything up perfectly, and then I just got ruined, and there was nothing I could have done.
Gonna say because you're at 30,002 miles when you do it.
Yep. Yeah, the first run I only got to like 155 because some dingus in Mexico pulled out in front of me, and I was like, oh fuck, damn it. I got to go back and do it again. I mean, granted, it's still right at 30,000. It's not a huge deal, but in the moment, I was really pissed off about it. Well, anyways, I had a couple other quick little interesting notes to talk about beyond just channel stuff.
Oh, really?
So this week, there was just some interesting things that happened with a bunch of cars getting announced being discontinued.
Do tell.
The Chevy Camaro, as we know it.
Oh, yeah.
That's not surprising.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? They might do some badge engineering and, carry after Ford and make an EV crossover and call it a Camaro. Or
Probably.
Camaro, or, I don't know, whatever.
Yep, so this is the last petrol-powered Camaro. It's dead as we know it.
Yeah.
Same with Jeep is discontinuing the Cherokee.
I saw that.
After almost a 50-year run.
What a fucking fall from grace that nameplate had.
Yep. This should have been done about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
At the 40-year anniversary, before the new Cherokee came out. It's not that it's a bad car, it's just not a good Cherokee.
Yeah, I would say it's probably not a great car either.
It's not. But my point is that's less the point than like it really just doesn't hold up to what it used to. Mm-hmm. Then this was one of the interesting ones to me. Last year, 2022 was the last time you could get a Passat here in North America.
Oh, true.
That has now extended worldwide. The only Passat now sold in Europe and worldwide will be a wagon. The sedan is gone.
Well, we don't get a wagon, though.
We never got the wagon. I'm just saying the sedan going away here in the States has now gone worldwide. So the only Passat that you can buy worldwide now will be a wagon.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was kind of interesting. And then finally, in doing that, I also found just a random list of other cars. Obviously, with the NSX Type S, that's gone this model year. Yep. A bunch of like really unnoteworthy cars like the Buick Encore and the Chevy Spark. Okay, good riddance.
Oh,
yeah, and then the Ford GT.
They're still making that?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, there's like some special edition that was announced earlier, I think, this year, or within the last 6 months, and like it was like the final edition of it or whatever.
It is. And then the standard Veloster.
That was already announced a while ago.
That one's been gone a while. The Aventador, anyways,
that was
like there's
a while ago.
Yeah, there's just a long list of things, and even the Toyota Avalon. Like just looking at this random list of cars that have just been kind of shoehorned out over the past 6 months, just getting canceled. I'm like, the moves are finally happening, and I'm hoping I have a love-hate relationship with people bringing back nameplates. I'm hoping that some of these just like die, not that the cars
Like
themselves
Enclave?
were. Yeah, well, yes, especially that. I'm hoping that just doesn't make a return. But even the good nameplates, I'm hoping that some of them die unless they are legitimately trying to bring back the spirit of the original in a modern context. I think that's the biggest problem. You mentioned Mustang earlier. I think that's the biggest problem with some of these brands is they take, we've got this old nameplate we can just shovel new shit into and then create something because we already own a trademark.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just horrible across the board for just, I guess you could say the legacy of the nameplate. And I'm specifically talking about nameplates that actually mean something like NSX. I think Acura, despite us feeling that the older ones were better, did a decent modern representation of an NSX.
I agree.
Even though we prefer the older ones.
Yeah. I mean, the modern automotive landscape is so much different in 2023 than it was in 1993 or 1991. Yeah, there was no way that Honda, I don't know why I said Toyota, that Honda could have come out with a car that weighed roughly 3,000 pounds and a naturally aspirated V6 that was mid-mounted. There's no way for them to come out with that and have any sales.
Yeah.
And call it an NSX. There's no way. Because, I mean, that car was in development for such a long time, too.
Yep.
Alongside with the LFA. Just by pure happenstance. But, yeah, there's no way that they would have made sales that way. So they would have had to have been forward-thinking, and forward-thinking in 2016, when that car came back, was hybrid technology and basically making a baby 918.
Yeah, and when we looked at the NSX video, like, the parallels are the same. They're both cheaper than their contemporaries. They both aim to undercut their high-performance contemporaries. They both aimed to deliver a modern driving experience that's reliable.
Yep.
They aimed to bring the brand forward and kind of create new technology for the rest of the brand. And I think on all of those marks, both different cars respectively did that. Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of the shoe mark or the hallmark. You should be aiming for that if you're going to bring a nameplate back. Like, for instance, Camaro. If we think of Camaro, we already know it is stupid easy to make stupid drag times with electric power or whatever they end up doing. What would be cool with a Camaro is being that Camaros have traditionally had a lot of somewhat high-performance variants, like a ZL1, 1LE, and the like.
Or even an SS, so like a really attainable high-performance front-engine, rear-drive coupe.
Exactly. Being that they've had those, what I hope Chevy eventually does, even though I don't hold Chevy in that high of a regard, even among other car companies, is I hope that they take that and make a 7th-gen Camaro with most likely electricity that carries on the core values of what made a Camaro good, instead of just saying, well, shit, we want to just have a pipe dream and somewhat reimagine this. No, you got to stay true to the recipe, basically.
Well, and it makes me wonder, too, if, I know with Lamborghini, I mean, granted, they are, as we all know, in a very different price realm, often separated by a zero.
Yeah.
That, their next generation of, like, their Huracan replacement is going to be electrified, but it will be a hybrid. It's not going to be a pure EV. With that said, I wonder if, a lot of that just makes me think that, sure, we might be losing a lot of cars that are pure petrol.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if those cars are going to go in a direction of hybridization, and we still are going to have, a gas-burning engine that makes noises. Maybe some of those noises also involve choo-choos. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder if, like, say, for the next Camaro, the next Mustang, I mean, we know that the upcoming Mustang is going to be all gas, but, like, whatever happens after that, or what's the newest version of the C8 Corvette ZR1, if we're going to get one of those.
Yeah.
I mean, automakers for the past few years have been introducing 48-volt mild hybrids. the Audi RS6 that I drove for a few days. I wrote an article about it a couple of years ago. That had it, and I completely forgot it existed until I was doing some research and I was writing the article after the car had already gone home.
Yep.
So, who knows? There might be some assistance like that. There might be some sort of technology that's 48 volt related, whether it is a 48 volt or higher, that is, that electrifies the vehicle. And yes, there's still a gas burning engine that is also accompanied by a mild hybrid or a full on hybrid. I don't know what the costs look like for that, for what the end result to the buyer is going to be. It's hard to say. I also saw something earlier this week that was talking about like the new STI might be STE or something.
Interesting.
It might be an electrified version of the WRX STI. Who knows? There's different directions these could go. Those nameplates could completely die, and we won't get another Camaro again. Who knows?
So many ways. And a lot of this comes down to this is the first time in effectively 100 years that we've had to totally rethink automobiles from the ground up, because ever since the early 1900s, effectively everything's been either petrol or diesel.
That's not entirely true. In the early 1900s, EVs were actually outselling gas cars.
Well, and that's why I said effectively, by numbers.
In the early 1900s, we were looking at 3 different avenues of cars. We were looking at gas, we were looking at EV, and we were looking at steam.
Yes.
One of those went away real quick.
Really? I wonder why.
Almost like up in a cloud.
Right? Exactly. I wonder why steam is dangerous. Maybe because you have a boiler driving down the road. That's just south of a nuclear car driving down the road.
Look at Jay Leno like a month ago.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever it was.
Yeah, it was a few months ago, but fortunately he recovered.
Yeah.
Fortunately.
And then he got into a crash later.
I know.
Jay, what the fuck, dude?
Come on, dude. You're not 20 anymore.
No, but he's 20 at heart, and that's what counts.
He is.
God bless you, Jay Leno. Anyways, back at the task at hand. What do you have to add for, the little thing I just said?
Yeah, because for a time it was a toss-up between what would take the crown, and we've seen that time and time again, both in the auto industry and out. There'll basically be 2 to 3 new technologies introduced in a given field. They'll battle it out, and typically the reason that one wins isn't down to what's effectively better, but what's easier. And for us, it turned out internal combustion was much easier because fossil fuels were prevalent and not really known how. They still are relatively prevalent, even though we know that they have a time cap now. They were easy to mass produce, simple compared to like a steam engine, for instance. There's less to go wrong. Also less catastrophe if something does go wrong. And so once all these things were lined out, and how electricity really back then was not a plentiful resource, we see that internal combustion took the field, and man, did it pave a crazy blaze a crazy trail ever since then, because it's basically created the entire American, especially, landscape.
And fast forward 120 years, and we're looking at EVs as a potential solution. However, so much of our lives outside of cars requires such a heavy dependence on cobalt and lithium ions, and the mining of cobalt and the materials that go into batteries, that EVs aren't also. That's not just the solution either. What we're doing is we're just exporting our dirty dependency to third world countries. We're just making our, as white America and also Europe, we're making our problem somebody else's, and we're just exporting the problem entirely. Yes, there isn't a tailpipe for emissions to come out of. However, what goes into a Tesla, what goes into a Nissan Leaf, what goes into Polestar, what goes into Rivians and the Hummer EV and whatever, the resources that go into that. And also there's the resources that goes into just making normal cars too. The plastics and the rubbers and the fake leatherette, that's also petrol-based too.
Yep.
So what are you going to do? Have a car that doesn't require any plastic in it?
Well, and for 120 years as well, mainly the last 80 of those 120 years, we've been creating our cities based on the car. Even if you don't own a car, you live in a city that a lot of its planning, probably a good 50% of its planning, relates around cars and how they get around.
Yeah, and there's also, lobbying to, eliminate cars from city centers, and that's a whole other discussion too. We can get off into the weeds about that some other time if we want to. That will actually require some homework on either end of us.
Yes.
We can both have opinions, but an actual episode would require homework.
Yeah, but basically what it comes down to is we're going to have seeing all these cars fall off the map. We're basically seeing the big moves start to happen as all of these a lot of the changes that have been building up over the past 10 years start to become more commonplace, with electrics vying for the next spot because there really hasn't been another contender that has entered the stage. And that's part of the problem, is that there's not enough competition with what is the next thing that's going to transport people. So electric has just become the de facto.
Yeah, and Toyota is also trying to get hydrogen back in. I think Honda has fallen out of that race pretty much entirely.
Yeah, Toyota and Kia, or Hyundai Kia. Yeah,
I mean, Toyota with a Mirai.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what Kia and Hyundai have up their sleeve, but
they had the DeLorean-looking one.
But that's not a car, though. That's a concept.
It's a concept, but it shows their intent that they would, we'll say with a bunch of caveats, like to potentially do that.
They would, yeah, but you can go out and buy a Mirai today if you live in California.
That's the difference, is that Toyota has actually done it so far. Hyundai has given the maybe we'll do that.
But the infrastructure of behind hydrogen is also like super complicated and complex. With they have to pressurize that shit to like 20,000 psi, and then down pressure it to like 10,000 psi, and then to some other pressure to get it out of the not the refinery, but the station into your car. And those, I mean, granted, my only real evidence behind this is the story that Zach Clapman told when he had a Mirai that he took on vacation, and he was literally stranded at a hydrogen station for like 48 hours or so, or 36 hours or something crazy. I don't know if you've seen it, and I need to find it and send it to you if you haven't.
Yeah.
It is less than ideal. So, and we already have an issue with charging stations across the country to begin with. Electrify America, while their message is great. I mean, we live in a society where the incentives behind EVs and the infrastructure is in producing the EV stations, not in maintaining the ones that already exist. There isn't any incentive to maintain the ones that exist compared to what's going into creating them. So okay, yeah, you have a station that shows up on your map, but you'll show up and it's either it's barely a trickle of a charge, or it's just not going to take your money to begin with.
Yeah, and actually, I think to round this out, I think I just thought of it. Part of the reason EVs have become the de facto is two problems. Number one, electricity is technically widely prevalent, even though charging stations aren't. Electricity is. Number two, it's an economy of scale factor. We've become, again, especially here in America, so dependent on individual transportation using petrol compared to any other alternative, including public transport, in 98% of the country, that changing in any way has mass effects. So the only way to quote-unquote change is for us as the average person to become the guinea pig, effectively, and to be guinea pigging.
That's the Tesla approach for sure.
Yes, especially Tesla is very bad at this, where the customer becomes the guinea pig for, in their case, their production quality, their supercharger systems, their software, all of it across the board. And the rest of self-driving, yep, and the rest of the industry has not followed suit nearly as much, but still quite a bit, because they're trying to do a little better job than Tesla, thank God, but for the most part, they're still having to make some of the same sacrifices, where they'll create a car that's really good on paper, that can do a lot of things, but might be kneecapped with like, oh, it doesn't support the charging standard that most stations support, or it'll default to a lower amperage rating, so it takes forever to charge because it's not in this charging network, or all that shit. So because we have to, with how dependent we are on fossil fuels, make this transition, quote unquote, so fast to not affect anything, it turns us into the trial and error.
Yep.
Which sucks, but oh well. I don't have the billions of dollars to make a difference with that. I wish I did. I wish I did have the billions to develop a better system, but I don't.
Yeah.
So, anyways. Well, that actually took quite a few different turns than I expected, but I think in a good way.
Yeah, I walked into this podcast not knowing what we were going to talk about, so I'm glad we were able to make an hour and 20 minutes worth it.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for listening, and thank you all for joining in yet again. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Let it be known. I mean, I need to post on Instagram more about. I mean, considering my job is now posting on Instagram. I don't do it nearly as often as I ought to. So in the comment of, if you're still listening to this podcast, by the way, drop a comment in the most recent Instagram post and let us know what you think. I'm not even going to mention buying our merch because clearly nobody gives a shit. So
yep.
There you go. Thank you all for listening to this free episode of the Exhibition of Speed podcast, and we'll see you later. Bye.